The acrid smell of burning ceramite and ionized metal filled Elena Rodriguez's nostrils. Consciousness came in razor-sharp fragments, each moment a battle against the encroaching darkness. Her left eye, now a fractured cybernetic implant, flickered between visual spectrums, infrared giving way to ultraviolet, then back to the muted grays of a dying battlefield. New Santiago Colony had been a jewel of human expansion, a terraformed marvel nestled in the Orion Arm's outer reaches. Now it was nothing more than a graveyard of shattered dreams and technological remnants. The Krell-Taxa invasion had been swift, brutal, and seemingly absolute. They were known throughout the galaxy as the perfect killing machines, a species that had conquered 17 different star systems with clinical precision. Elena's body was a testament to the violence she had survived. Her right arm was gone, replaced by a dangling network of exposed quantum circuitry and torn synthetic muscle fibers. Ceramic-reinforced bone grafts peeked through multiple layers of burned tactical armor. Each breath was a calculated effort, her enhanced respiratory system working overtime to filter out toxic particulates and maintain oxygen levels. Around her, the battlefield told a story of humanity's last stand. Scattered combat drones lay broken like mechanical corpses, their advanced targeting systems crushed and rendered useless. Plasma scoring marked the ground where human defenders had made their final desperate push. Personal weapons, some still clutched by dead hands, represented humanity's futile resistance against the overwhelming Krell-Taxa assault. Memory fragments began to coalesce. Elena remembered the initial attack. The first wave had come without warning. Quantum-shifted battleships dropping out of faster-than-light transit directly above the colony's primary defense grid. Conventional warning systems hadn't stood a chance. Within minutes, orbital defense platforms were reduced to molten debris, and ground-based units were overwhelmed by swarm tactics that defied traditional military understanding. Her platoon, the 73rd Adaptive Response Unit, had been considered the best of the best. Specially trained for unconventional warfare, they were supposed to be humanity's shield against impossible odds. Now they were nothing more than cooling bodies scattered across the scorched landscape. A sudden movement caught her damaged eye sensor. A Krell-Taxa scout walker, nearly 15 meters tall, was performing a systematic sweep of the area. Its biomechanical legs moved with an insectoid precision, scanning for any remaining signs of human resistance. Elena knew that to move would mean instant detection. Her tactical implants calculated survival probabilities. Each second a mathematical dance between concealment and discovery. The scout's sensor array swept closer. Elena could see the intricate bioluminescent patterns that characterized Krell-Taxa technological design, a fusion of organic intelligence and machine precision that had made them seemingly unbeatable. Each sweep of its sensor array was a complex algorithm designed to detect the slightest thermal or electromagnetic signature. In that moment, something unexpected happened. A piece of her damaged combat armor, partially fused with her body's biosynthetic systems, began to emit a low-frequency quantum resonance. It was an unintended consequence of her multiple augmentations, a technological whisper that might as well have been a scream in the quiet battlefield. The scout walker paused. Elena's enhanced cognitive systems went into overdrive. Survival protocols battled with tactical assessment. Every microsecond counted. Her remaining systems began to route power, preparing for potentially the most important moment of her life. If the Krell-Taxa scout detected her, she would die. If she remained motionless, she might survive. But survival was no longer just about her. It was about sending a message that humanity was not finished, that despite this overwhelming assault, the human spirit remained unbroken. The quantum resonance continued. A heartbeat, a challenge, a promise of future retribution. The scout walker's sensors continued their methodical sweep, and Elena Rodriguez waited, broken but undefeated. The Lazarus Complex was not a hospital. It was a shadow facility buried beneath the Rocky Mountain Preservation Zone, a place where the boundaries between medical science and military engineering blurred into something entirely new. Security clearance here meant nothing. Only potential mattered. Dr. Marcus Chen stood before Alina's suspended animation chamber, his reflection distorted by layers of quantum reactive glass and biological monitoring systems. She wasn't a patient. She was a project, the most ambitious human augmentation attempt in recorded history. Cellular degradation at 62% stabilized, muttered Dr. Aisha Nakamura, her augmented retinal displays scrolling through impossibly complex biological data. Quantum neural interface is showing unexpected synaptic growth patterns. The chamber itself was a marvel of technological integration. Microscopic nanoassemblers continuously rebuilt and reinforced Alina's damaged biological systems, while quantum-entangled processors mapped and rebuilt neural pathways that conventional medicine would have deemed impossible to restore. Each second was a delicate dance of reconstruction, pushing the human body beyond its known limitations. Political tensions surrounding the project were equally complex. The Global Defense Council had initially rejected the proposal as too experimental, too risky. But the complete devastation of New Santiago Colony had changed everything. Humanity needed more than just soldiers. They needed weapons that could think, adapt, and survive where traditional military strategies had failed. Dr. Chen's personal file told a story of obsession. His entire research career had been dedicated to understanding the human body's adaptive potential. The Krell-Taxa invasion wasn't just a military defeat. It was a challenge to everything humanity understood about survival and evolution. Quantum resonance is increasing, Nakamura called out. The monitors began to pulse with an almost organic rhythm. Alina's body was no longer just healing, it was transforming. In another section of the facility, a team of quantum engineers worked on the neural interface that would become Alina's primary combat system. It was more than a prosthetic or an augmentation. They were creating a living weapon system that could interface directly with both human and alien technologies. Deep within the facility's most secure laboratory, prototype interface modules underwent final testing. Each module represented years of research, stolen fragments of alien technology reverse-engineered and integrated with human biological systems. The Krell-Taxa had believed their technological superiority was absolute. These researchers were about to prove them wrong. A sudden alarm broke the controlled environment. The quantum neural interface had just performed an unexpected system integration. Monitoring screens flickered. Computer systems momentarily lost synchronization. For 3 full minutes, the entire Lazarus complex was under the control of something that was neither fully human nor machine. Dr. Chen watched in a mixture of terror and fascination. The neural interface was learning, adapting, growing beyond its original design parameters. "We're not just healing her," he whispered to Nakamura. "We're creating something entirely new." Political observers would later argue about the ethical implications. Military strategists would debate the potential risks. But in that moment, beneath tons of reinforced mountain rock, a new form of human potential was being born. Alina's body began to change. Synthetic muscle fibers integrated with quantum reactive biological systems. Her damaged organs were being replaced not with static prosthetics, but with adaptive systems that could modify themselves in real time. Each cell became a potential weapon, each neural pathway a complex computational matrix. The quantum neural interface continued its silent evolution. Humanity's next stage of development was taking shape, one quantum pulse at a time. The Krell-Taxa observational outpost Sigma 9 floated like a metallic tumor against the backdrop of the Proxima Centauri system. From the outside, it appeared impregnable, a fortress of alien engineering that had monitored human space for decades. Its quantum-locked defense grid had repelled countless attempts at infiltration, its sensor arrays so advanced they could detect the most microscopic disturbance. They never saw Alina coming. Her insertion was nothing short of impossible. No conventional transport could breach the outpost's defensive perimeter. No known human technology could slip past its multispectral scanning systems. But Alina was no longer purely conventional. She was a living ghost in the machine. The first sign of intrusion came as a microscopic quantum flutter. Backup systems in the outpost's central processing core registered a momentary anomaly, so brief that most monitoring algorithms would have dismissed it as a statistical error. But this was no error. It was Alina, her newly integrated quantum neural interface, allowing her to exist simultaneously as both digital signal and biological entity. Surveillance cameras captured nothing. Motion sensors remained silent. The outpost's artificial intelligence began to experience what could only be described as a slow, methodical lobotomy. Communication specialist Zorak Thax was the first to notice something was wrong. Her tertiary monitoring station began to display impossible data streams, fragments of encrypted information that seemed to flow like liquid through the station's hardened communication networks. Standard Krell-Taxa communication protocols began to dissolve, replaced by something far more complex. "Command, we have an unexplained system degradation," she reported, her multi-segmented communication tendrils moving with increasing agitation. "Quantum encryption is fragmenting." The response never came. Deep within the station's most secure data core, Alina's consciousness moved like a predator. Each system she touched became an extension of her being. Defensive firewalls dissolved. Security protocols rewrote themselves. The station's own technological immune system was turned against itself. This was more than hacking. This was digital possession. Tactical systems began to realign. Life support controls shifted microscopic parameters. Gravitational stabilizers started to create imperceptible stress points in the station's structural integrity. To an outside observer, nothing would seem amiss until the moment of total failure. Thax watched in mounting horror as her communication panels began to display human language, fragments of tactical data, mission reports, colony distress signals from New Santiago. Memories, ghosts of the civilization they had tried to destroy. The station's central AI made a fatal mistake. It attempted to isolate the intrusion, creating a containment protocol that only accelerated its own destruction. Each defensive measure became another vector of attack, another pathway for Alina's quantum consciousness to explore and exploit. 37 minutes after the first quantum flutter, Outpost Sigma-9 ceased to exist as a functional entity. From the human monitoring station light years away, Dr. Marcus Chen watched the data stream with a mixture of scientific fascination and primal fear. "She's not just destroying the station," he muttered to his team. "She's deconstructing it, learning from it." The final transmission from the outpost was a brief cryptic message, a quantum-encoded signal that would later be decoded as a single phrase. "This is for New Santiago." Debris field analysis would later show something unprecedented. The station hadn't been destroyed by conventional weapons. It had been systematically taken apart, its own systems used to dismantle its structure from the inside out. Each component carefully separated, as if cataloged by an intelligence far beyond standard computational abilities. The Krell-Taxa leadership would receive fragmented reports. An entire observational outpost, gone. No survivors. No clear method of attack. Just a calling card. A warning. Humanity was fighting back. The underground bunker beneath San Francisco's ruins hummed with a different kind of energy. This was no military installation. This was a revolution being born. Maya Ochoa, a former communications specialist from the Brazilian Interstellar Defense Force, spread Elena Rodriguez's fragmented technical schematics across a holographic display. Each quantum data packet was a piece of something larger, a blueprint for human survival that went far beyond traditional military augmentation. "We're not just talking about upgrades," Maya explained to the assembled group of scientists, engineers, and surviving military personnel. "This is a complete reimagining of human potential." Around her, a dozen of the world's most brilliant minds worked feverishly. Some were modifying neural interfaces, others developing new quantum-adaptive prosthetics. The destruction of the Krell-Taxa observation post had done more than deliver a message. It had ignited a spark of hope across human resistance groups. Dr. Hiroshi Tanaka, a pioneer in biomechanical engineering, carefully examined a prototype neural link. His fingers traced the intricate quantum circuits, each movement revealing decades of suppressed technological innovation. "The Krell taxa believed they had crushed our spirit," he muttered. "They never understood that human potential is our greatest weapon." The resistance wasn't just about revenge, it was about evolution. In orbital research stations and hidden planet-side laboratories, teams began replicating fragments of Alina's technological breakthrough. Each augmented soldier was a unique solution, a living weapon system designed to exploit the smallest vulnerabilities in Krell taxa technological superiority. Carlos Rodriguez, Alina's younger brother and a former drone warfare specialist, stood apart from the technical discussions. His augmentations were different. Focused on tactical integration and battlefield coordination, he represented a new type of human combatant. Where Alina was a living weapon, Carlos was becoming a living command and control system. Intelligence reports continued to stream in. The Krell taxa were scrambling, their typically methodical approach replaced by something close to panic. The destruction of Outpost Sigma-9 had exposed vulnerabilities they never believed possible. "They think in static systems," Maya explained, bringing up tactical simulations. "Linear progression, predictable responses. But we're creating something dynamic, adaptive, alive." A new message flickered across secure communication channels. Encrypted, quantum-encoded, it carried Alina's unique signature. Not just information, a challenge. A call to arms that resonated with every human resistance cell across colonized space. The augmentation process was brutal, experimental. Each volunteer understood the risks. Compatibility rates were low. Survival was never guaranteed, but the alternative was extinction. In a sealed laboratory module, a test subject's body convulsed as quantum neural interfaces integrated. Monitoring systems tracked impossible biological transformations. Some augmentations failed catastrophically. Others revealed capabilities beyond current scientific understanding. Dr. Tanaka watched a successful integration with a mixture of scientific excitement and human compassion. "We're not creating soldiers," he told Maya. "We're creating the next stage of human evolution." The Krell taxa had made a fundamental miscalculation. They had treated humanity as a static species, a problem to be solved through overwhelming technological force. But humanity had always been about adaptation, about turning limitations into opportunities. Each augmented soldier was a living testament to that potential. Each modified human body a middle finger to alien expectations. The resistance was no longer just fighting. They were transforming. And the galaxy was about to learn a painful lesson about underestimating humanity. The Krell taxa primary fleet staging area was a marvel of galactic engineering. Positioned in the dark space between the Carina and Sagittarius arms, Fleet Nexus Omega represented the pinnacle of alien military technology. A self-sustaining ecosystem of battleships, repair facilities, and quantum communication nodes, it had been the linchpin of their galactic conquest strategy for over 3 centuries. Alina Rodriguez existed everywhere and nowhere. Her consciousness fragmented across multiple quantum channels. She was simultaneously a digital phantom and a living weapon. The fleet's defensive systems were about to experience something they had never encountered. A threat that defied conventional understanding of warfare, biology, and technological integration. Admiral Klex, the senior Krell taxa fleet commander, reviewed the latest strategic projections. Their neural-linked tactical displays showed nothing but optimal positioning, perfect defensive configurations. Each ship was a living organism, each fleet movement a carefully calculated dance of technological supremacy. They never saw the first attack coming. It began with microscopic quantum disruptions. Communication channels started to experience inexplicable latency. Backup systems initiated without apparent cause. Navigational arrays began to drift fractionally, so slight that only the most sensitive instruments could detect the deviation. Tactical anomaly, reported Sub-Commander Vertak, his multi-jointed communication tendrils moving with increasing agitation. Primary quantum encryption is experiencing unexpected fragmentation. The first true indication of the attack came when an entire destroyer squadron suddenly lost navigational control. Ships began to drift, their perfectly synchronized movements dissolving into chaos. Defensive systems initiated conflicting protocols. Weapon arrays targeted each other with increasing frequency. Elena wasn't just attacking. She was teaching the fleet's own systems how to destroy themselves. Deep within the Human Resistance Command Center, Dr. Marcus Chen watched the unfolding operation with a mixture of scientific fascination and strategic calculation. "She's not just breaking their systems," he muttered to Carlos Rodriguez. "She's rewriting their fundamental operational logic." Each quantum pulse was a lesson in destruction. Communication networks began to cannibalize themselves. Defensive protocols became vectors of attack. The Krell taxa had built their technological supremacy on the assumption of predictable, linear system responses. Humanity was about to prove how wrong they were. Carlos monitored the tactical overlay, his own augmentations allowing him to process the battle in ways no traditional human commander could. "She's using their own technological DNA against them," he observed. "Each system is becoming a potential point of failure." The attack wasn't just military. It was philosophical. Tactical databases began to fill with fragments of human history, colonization records, survival stories, memories of worlds destroyed. The Krell taxa fleet's own systems became a conduit for the very civilization they had tried to eradicate. Admiral Klex watched in mounting horror as fleet coordination dissolved. Their quantum-linked neural networks, once their greatest strength, became a catastrophic vulnerability. Each ship was becoming an island, cut off from the collective intelligence that had made the Krell taxa seemingly invincible. "This is impossible," Klex transmitted across failing communication channels. "No biological entity can." The transmission never completed. 53 minutes after the first quantum disruption, Fleet Nexus Omega ceased to exist as a coordinated military entity. Not destroyed, deconstructed, taken apart by its own systems, guided by an intelligence that moved between digital and biological realms. The final transmission was a quantum-encoded message, fragments of human language mixed with complex mathematical patterns, a message that would take years to fully decode. But its meaning was clear. Humanity was fighting back, and the rules of warfare would never be the same. The Krell taxa High Council convened in their most secure deliberation chamber, a gravitationally isolated space that existed outside standard dimensional parameters. Holographic representations of surviving leadership flickered with an uncharacteristic sense of uncertainty. High Arbiter Extel, the eldest and most revered of their species, broke the oppressive silence. "Our technological supremacy has been our greatest weakness." The chamber fell into a collective neural resonance, a telepathic communication that had guided their species through millennia of galactic conquest. But something had changed. The predictable patterns of their collective consciousness now carried an undertone of genuine fear. Intelligence reports painted a catastrophic picture, not just the destruction of Fleet Nexus Omega, but a cascading systemic failure across their entire operational network. Colonies that had been stable for centuries were now experiencing unprecedented social and technological breakdowns. "This is not merely a military defeat," continued Extel. "This is a fundamental challenge to our understanding of technological evolution." On the human side, the aftermath was equally complex. The resistance had struck a devastating blow, but the cost was becoming increasingly apparent. The experimental augmentations that had transformed soldiers like Elena were proving to be both a blessing and a potential existential threat. Dr. Aisha Nakamura stood in a secured medical observation wing, carefully monitoring the latest batch of augmented soldiers. Not all modifications were stable. Some subjects experienced complete neural collapse within hours of integration. Others developed abilities that defied current scientific understanding. "We're pushing the boundaries of human potential," she explained to a team of weary researchers. "But we're also walking a razor's edge between evolution and extinction." Carlos Rodriguez reviewed the latest tactical assessments, His own augmentations allowed him to process information at speeds that would have been impossible mere months ago. Each data point told a story of escalating conflict and escalating technological transformation. The Krell taxa response was already taking shape. Their species had never encountered a true existential threat. Adaptation was their survival mechanism, and they were about to demonstrate why they had conquered 17 star systems. Deep cover infiltration units began to deploy, not traditional military assets, but living information networks, biological computers designed to understand and neutralize the new human threat. Each infiltrator carried decades of accumulated technological and tactical knowledge. In orbit around a forgotten human colony, the first of these infiltration units made contact. They discovered something entirely unexpected. The Human Augmentation Project was no longer just a military response. It had become something far more profound, a species-wide transformation that blurred the lines between biological and technological existence. Extel's holographic projection studied the raw data. They are not developing weapons, the High Arbiter observed. They are becoming something new. The implications were terrifying. Humanity had always been defined by its ability to adapt, to turn limitations into opportunities. The Krell taxa had believed this was a weakness. Now they were learning it was their most dangerous strength. Each augmented soldier was a living experiment. Each modification, a step towards an unknown future. The resistance was no longer just fighting for survival. They were fighting to redefine the very nature of intelligent life. The galaxy held its breath. Somewhere, in a secured medical facility, Elena Rodriguez's quantum neural interface continued its silent evolution. She was no longer just a soldier, no longer just a weapon. She was becoming something else entirely. The chamber was unlike anything seen in known galactic conflict. A nexus point between dimensional spaces, it existed beyond traditional battlefield concepts. Here, the Krell taxa's supreme commander would make their final stand, a direct challenge to the human weapon that had dismantled their technological supremacy. Supreme Commander Zarek stood 7 meters tall, a living fusion of biological engineering and quantum computational systems. Every movement was a calculated mathematical projection, every breath a strategic algorithm. Against the chamber's quantum reactive walls, Zarek represented the pinnacle of Krell taxa evolutionary design. Elena Rodriguez arrived as pure information. Her consciousness fragmented across multiple quantum states. She was simultaneously a biological entity and a living computational matrix. The chamber's reality began to warp, dimensional boundaries becoming fluid as two fundamentally different forms of intelligence prepared to clash. You are an anomaly. Zarek's communication burst through dimensional frequencies, a statistical error in the universal computational model. Elena's response was beyond language, a quantum pulse that carried centuries of human survival, of resistance, of unexpected potential. The battlefield was reality itself. Zarek's initial attack was a total spectrum assault. Quantum entanglement weapons designed to shred biological systems at the molecular level. Dimensional compression fields that could reduce matter to pure energy. Computational warfare algorithms that had ended civilizations. Elena didn't defend. She adapted. Each weapon became a learning opportunity. Each attack a pathway to understanding. The Krell taxa had always viewed conflict as a linear progression, a series of calculated moves leading to inevitable victory. Humanity saw conflict as a conversation, an opportunity for transformation. Carlos Rodriguez monitored the confrontation from a secured quantum relay station. His own augmentations allowed him to process fragments of the battle, glimpses of a conflict happening beyond standard perceptual limits. "She's not fighting," he muttered to Dr. Marcus Chen. "She's communicating." The chamber itself became a living battlefield. Molecular structures rearranged. Dimensional boundaries flexed. What had begun as a military confrontation was transforming into something far more profound, a dialogue between two fundamentally different forms of intelligence. Zarek's computational systems began to experience something unprecedented. Uncertainty, a concept that had never existed in their strategic models. Human memories began to flood the confrontation space, moments of survival, of unexpected resilience, of hope in the face of overwhelming odds. Each memory was a weapon more powerful than any quantum compression field. The Supreme Commander's computational matrix started to fragment. Not through destruction, through understanding. Alina was showing the Krull taxa something they had never comprehended. The true nature of intelligence was not about technological superiority. It was about adaptation, about the ability to learn, to grow, to transform. 47 minutes into the confrontation, reality itself seemed to hold its breath. Zarek's final transmission was not a battle cry. It was a moment of profound realization. We misunderstood. The Supreme Commander's communication burst across dimensional frequencies. Survival is not about power. It is about potential. The chamber collapsed, not destroyed, transformed. When dimensional sensors stabilized, nothing remained. No evidence of battle. No trace of the combatants. Just a quantum signature that carried a simple message. The future belongs to those willing to change. 10 years after the confrontation, humanity looked nothing like it had before. The United Colonies Research Station orbited Europa, a testament to the profound changes that had swept through human civilization. Where once there had been clear distinctions between biological and technological systems, now there existed something entirely new. Dr. Maya Oko watched the latest generation of human children, if children was even the right word anymore. They moved with a fluidity that defied traditional understanding, their bodies a seamless integration of biological potential and technological adaptation. Each individual was a living network, capable of instantaneous communication, collaborative problem-solving, and environmental synchronization. Carlos Rodriguez, now the primary human liaison to emerging galactic civilizations, walked through the station's central hub. His augmentations had long since become something more than mere technological enhancement. He was a living bridge between what humanity had been and what it was becoming. The Krull taxa were gone, not destroyed, but transformed. Their encounter with human potential had triggered a fundamental reassessment of their entire species' understanding of intelligence. The few remaining Krull taxa had become diplomatic emissaries, eager to understand the transformation they had inadvertently catalyzed. "We're not a species anymore," Carlos explained to a delegation of newly contacted alien civilizations. "We're a living network, an adaptive intelligence that continues to evolve." Research archives told the story of Alina Rodriguez, no longer a single individual, but a foundational concept. Her quantum confrontation with Zarek had been more than a battle. It had been a moment of species-level communication that fundamentally altered the understanding of intelligent life. The youngest generations had no concept of the old boundaries: biological, technological, individual, collective. These were obsolete distinctions. Each human was simultaneously a unique entity and part of a larger, fluid intelligence. Terraforming projects now approached planetary development as a collaborative process. Entire ecosystems were designed through collective intelligence, with humans working in perfect synchronization with local environments. The line between technology, biology, and planetary systems had become beautifully blurred. Dr. Aisha Nakamura, now well into her second century of life, thanks to advanced biological maintenance technologies, reviewed the latest evolutionary projections. The human species had become an open-source project, each individual contributing to a collective understanding that transcended individual limitations. "We're not conquering the universe," she often said. "We're participating with it." Alien civilizations watched with a mixture of fascination and trepidation. The human transformation was unlike anything in galactic history. Not a military expansion, not a technological conquest, but a continuous process of adaptation and understanding. The research station's quantum communication network pulsed with a living intelligence. Memories of New Santiago, the colony that had been destroyed, were preserved not as a wound, but as a transformative moment, a catalyst for growth. Carlos found a quiet observation deck, looking out at the vast complexity of the solar system. Fragments of Elena's consciousness still existed within the collective network, not as a single consciousness, but as a foundational understanding, a reminder of the moment everything changed. A young researcher approached, her body a subtle shimmer of biological and technological integration. "Is it true," she asked, "that we were once separate? That we didn't understand how to communicate with the universe?" Carlos smiled. The question itself demonstrated how far they had come. "We're still learning," he responded. "And that's the most important part." Beyond the station's quantum reactive windows, the universe continued its endless dance of creation and transformation. Humanity was no longer just observing. They were participating. A living network, an adaptive intelligence, a continuous conversation with the cosmos.